Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check it out. We got this for you today. SEC versus Ripple case. How will Judge Torres rule? Well, we're going to get a great insight on just what that may be, and you're going to love it. Petrodollar agreement, is it coming to an end? We're going to get into it and hear from Jim Rickards, ladies and gentlemen. And the SEC shutdown, in part, and for good damn reason. You're going to find out right now. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and digperspectives.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's $2.77 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 2.5%, not 1,900, like the glitch was saying in the earlier video this morning. However, Bitcoin, over 70,000 again, 70,700 right now plus, and 3,800 plus for Ethereum. We see 111 billion plus market cap for USD Tether at the moment. You know what? Let's call this one too. USDC is sitting at 32 billion plus market cap, and we don't have yet Ripple's stablecoin, but watch out. Near term, you're going to see that, and it won't be long before that baby's up in the top 10 too. Think of that for a moment. 52-cent XRP at the number 8 spot. We're off by 0.3 into 24 and off by 0.8 on the 7-day. The range of price between 52 and 53 cents. We'll keep an eye on it. I Trust Capital, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't done it, I know a lot of people. I just had somebody contact me and were like, hey, thank you very much. I rolled over my 401k into I Trust, and boy, do I love it. And you can too. Click the link underneath the video. It is not hard to do. They have it all figured out. This is an amazing company that offers an amazing services. You get your own back office, empower yourself. And I've said it a million times. I'll say it 1,000,001. The only thing better than buying crypto is buying tax-free crypto, which is exactly what you can do inside of your I Trust Capital. Click the link to my sponsor below and get started today. Let's go over this very quickly. Well, they've come home to roost. Remember when we found out just a few days ago, late last week, that the SEC was fined $1.8 million by the judge in the debt box case for fraud and lying on stand in court? Are you kidding me? Yeah, no, this happened. I'm not kidding you. That's exactly what happened. Well, according to what reported, it seems that the Salt Lake City office of the Securities Exchange Commission is about to close its doors. The office is known for the lawsuit filed against the crypto startup debt box fraud, and they're closing their doors in Salt Lake City. Now, is that due to the embarrassment? I'm sure they'll try to spin it and turn it another way, but the reality is probably, more than likely, the SEC has been losing massively in the courtroom. And I'll tell you something, but it doesn't stop them from continuing to gouge the people that they're targeting and suck the money out of them personally and their companies in order to fight these horrible claims that are being made against these companies. Again, in order to sustain this case, the SEC lied and then got caught and fined $1.8 million. The least they can do is shut that office down. CoinDesk acknowledging the same thing, that the SEC shutting down its Salt Lake regional office due to significant attrition. Yeah, that attrition might be good lawyers going, you know what? It used to be honorable and reputable to be associated with the SEC, and now it isn't. Not so much. So people are getting the hell out of there. Well, here's an agency that actually is trying to be an advocate for new innovation and still employ the regulation that we currently have while striving to find regulation for this asset class moving forward, not only domestically in the United States, but jurisdictionally around the world with other countries and regions. So I want you to hear just this 1 minute right here from 1:30. Take a listen from Commissioner Pham.
Aims to set out consistent language for participants in the digital asset ecosystem to promote innovation, identify and address risk considerations, and enable effective regulatory understanding. With this objective in mind, the approach builds upon the considerable classification efforts of global prudential standard setters and regional authorities, including the Bank for International Settlements, the FSB, and others. The GMAC had recommended that this approach be considered an initial basis for consensus-driven functional taxonomy. And as the digital asset ecosystem continues to evolve, so too will the terminology used to classify it. The subcommittee plans to reassess any future developments to provide further recommendations to this approach based on the guidance of its members. And the subcommittee seeks to support effective rules and regulations for digital assets and recommends continued collaboration between industry, standard-setting bodies, and the regulatory community.
Listen,
as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, this document has proven to be incredibly useful as foundational guidelines for developing a common understanding across jurisdictions for how to approach digital assets. And indeed, I think it's been a helpful educational document and resource for U.S. policymakers as well.
And now this is all being done while we're seeing the SEC absolutely suppress this space and target legitimate companies like Ripple, Coinbase, Debtbox, right? And so the list it's a laundry list, right? But what I find interesting here is exactly what Chris Dixon said the other day. They're not targeting the meme coins. They're not targeting the projects that don't do anything. No, they're targeting the ones with utility. And that tells me that the motive behind that is for the legacy financial system, right? Because they're the ones scared of the utility instead of embracing it currently. And that has to change. And it will. Oh, it will. And right now, while we're talking right now, there's a hearing going on right here. Shout out to the Digital Chamber for this, the Financial Committee Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Inclusion. I want you to hear from Representative French right now.
Today, we're hearing from individuals actively leveraging tokenization to improve and enhance both our capital markets and our banking system.
There you go. Enhance the capital markets and our banking system. Again, as Chris Dixon had said, the people that are being targeted and companies that are being targeted right now, like Ripple and XRP, are projects and companies that actually bring utility. That's where we're getting ready to cross and get past.
Our witnesses are helping usher in the next age of financial services into the United States, and I'm excited to learn more about the enhancements that they're actively working on, both here and abroad.
I hope we get to hear from Brad Garlinghouse. I don't know if he's there, but I would love it if he was there to testify, along with Carlos Domingo from Securitize, who just recently got a tokenized fund from BlackRock's Biddle. There's so much going on here, ladies and gentlemen. And again, this here from Eleanor Terrett, shout out to her. Look what has found its way into the House Appropriations GOP budget bill that is set to be markup at the hearing tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., which has already happened. One of the provisions or policy riders of the bill is prohibiting the SEC from using its appropriated funds to implement the SAB 121. This is Congress firing back, the GOP firing back to that veto from the president when they had a bipartisan approval to not pass the SAB 121 from the House and the Senate, and it was vetoed by the president. Well, this is the House GOP responding to that veto by saying, well, you know what? We're going to put a policy rider in here that doesn't allow them to use any appropriate funds to implement this rule, SAB 121, which prohibits banks and financial institutions from custodying digital assets. They're trying to stop it from happening in a timely manner. Now, I want you to hear the strides that have been made here for license acquisition here in the United States. And this is Raul Ivani from Ripple.
But right now, regulation is at the state level. Right?
Yeah, state level, yeah.
So Ripple has about 40 money transfer licenses in the U.S. At the state level, across the various states. We also have a BIT license in New York. We also have a trust license through Standard Custody, who we just acquired out of New York as well. At the same time, we're regulated in Singapore. We have a major payments institution license in Singapore from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. We're also regulated in Ireland by the Central Bank of Ireland. We're on the VASP registry. So we're looking at, the universe of, regulators out there and which would be the appropriate fit for us. but the intent is to be a regulated stablecoin.
Okay.
No doubt about it. And great to hear from Raul on that one. Now let's look at the geopolitical side of things. We just took a look at the domestic landscape and the fight that's happening interagencies and things of that nature. The SEC, the CFTC making strides. You know, there's all of this back and forth and pull, this tug and pull about who's going to win this. Listen, if the U.S. doesn't get the FIT 21 or some compensatory bill that is going to support the innovation for this digital asset class so we can participate and become a leader in the fourth industrial revolution, we lose. We lose as a country all the way around. China offloaded a record amount of U.S. Treasury and agency bonds in the first quarter. China continues to load up on gold. The Middle East continues to move closer to the country. Turkey is pushing to join the BRICS coalition as country continues to accumulate gold itself. Battle lines are being drawn. They really are, but there's some things we have to look at. Vandell from Black Swan Capitalist here says, Saudi Arabia is not renewing the 50-year petrodollar agreement with the U.S. that expires on June 9th in just 4 days, ladies and gentlemen. For those who don't know, the petrodollar agreement was established in 1974, 3 years after the U.S. abandoned the gold standard. Henry Kissinger was responsible for making that happen, just so you know. Under the petrodollar agreement, Saudi Arabia agreed to sell oil exclusively in the U.S. dollars in exchange for U.S. military security and economic development assistance. Now you know why gold is moving. So, in 4 days, he's suggesting that the U.S. petrodollar agreement will not be renewed. That is something to really watch out for. So shout out to Vandell for that. We will watch out for that. And in the meantime, there is a bit of a shift in the winds. 73 central banks are buying U.S. dollars and ditching the Chinese yuan. And all of this in the article is really being explained to say that the high yields for the dollar right now is basically showing there's no honor among thieves, right? That these central banks are saying, you know what? I'm going where the gains are, okay? And regardless of the fact that BRICS is looking to uproot the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency, this is causing headwinds for BRICS and the BRICS coalition when it comes to using the Chinese yuan. Now, when it comes to using the BRICS the BRICS world reserve currency that they want to create, which is their own token backed by gold, that's another story, and that's going to take a little time. But we have Jim Rickards here to explain that story to us all. Now let's start right here. Listen to what he says about the whole notion. Because look, we've talked on this channel about the transition from the sterling pound to the US dollar as the world reserve currency. The US dollar fought for 14 years before that was even a conversation, so they could be a part of that conversation when the time came. And then there was still a period of time for that transition to happen after World War II as well. So take a listen to what Jim Rickards says to us all right here.
I want to talk about the reports of the death of the U.S. dollar. Obviously, some saying it's greatly exaggerated. Here's a SWIFT payment system of late. The U.S. dollar actually taking a much bigger share here recently. But I also saw another.
Now, that much bigger share of recently is showing the confidence of why the article I just showed you says it's 75 central banks are going, well, I'm going to go with the U.S. dollar for now, not the Chinese yuan at the moment, because they're going to go where the gains are. It's very simple, right? Take a listen.
Chart, and I thought about you. We said, you know, we got to call Jim. So this is a assets, right, around the world in terms of reserve assets. So the U.S. dollar is this part here, and it's holding in there pretty good. But we're starting to see gold really take off right here. And I'm wondering, could the dollar be supplanted not by another fiat currency, but by something else other than the fiat currency?
Well, you're right, Charles. Fiat currencies do supplant each other over time, but it's a very slow process. Classic case, sterling was at its peak in about 1914. By 1944, Bretton Woods, it was sort of a footnote. But that took 30 years. It didn't happen overnight. So is the dollar running into a lot of headwinds? Actually, I always say that the world cannot destroy the dollar, but the U.S. could do it itself, and we're doing a pretty good job of that. But you're right. Dollar, round numbers, is about 60% of global payments. It's the currency of about 60% of global reserves, so it's still the king of the hill. You can forget about there's not going to be a gold-backed Chinese yuan. Forget about that. China doesn't have enough gold. Russian ruble is not going to displace it. Russia and China don't have the rule of law or the bond markets. Those are key things about being a reserve currency. The BRICS currency is coming along, but it's going to take another 5 to 10 years. The key thing there, it's easy to announce a currency, a payment currency. That's just a ledger entry. What you need is a large enough trading area where if I get some, I export and I get paid in BRICS, I can go shopping in 20 countries instead of 1 or 2 if I'm getting rubles or yuan. They're not there yet, but they're adding members every year. They'll add some more at the summit in Russia in October. That'll take a few more years. However, the rival to gold is already here, and it's the one you pointed to. The rival to the dollar, rather, is already here, and it's the one you pointed to. It's gold. Right now, by the way, very few people realize this. The United States has 70% of its reserves in gold. Now, we don't need foreign currencies because we print the dollar, but that's the data. Russia has 25% of its reserves in gold. China has about 8% of its reserves in gold. And those numbers are both going up. Interestingly, when you look at the IMF data on currency shares, they have dollar, euro, Canadian dollar, Australian dollar, and so forth. They give you all the data. You can compute the percentages quickly. They don't include gold, which is weird because the IMF itself has over 1,000 metric tons of gold. So when you put gold in the picture, 2 things are happening. Number one, the inversion was 2010. That's when central bank gold reserves started going up. That's accelerating. And now the U.S. is just a week away. June 13th, G7 summit in Italy. The U.S. is going to lead an effort to steal $300 billion of Russian-owned assets in the form of U.S. Treasury securities. When that happens, you're going to see again, the treasury market's not going to collapse. I don't want to overstate this, but at the margin, if you can't trust the treasury, do you really want Italian, German, or Japanese bonds? I don't think so. You're going to want gold.
Right. Great.
And there you have it right there, ladies and gentlemen. So a period of time, right? And the bigger concern would be BRICS currency that they come out with collectively over just the Chinese yuan, right? So there's a big difference between those two elements. So worth noting right there, ladies and gentlemen. And it is a fight, and it will not end. But I want to show this. Ripple partners with Clear Junction to enhance UK and EU cross-border payments. Hello. Clear Junction will facilitate instant pound and euro payout coverage for Ripple's payments customers with other currencies soon to be added. Oh, this is getting good, ladies and gentlemen, because it sounds like to me what we're watching happen here is the world move into the new system. That's what's going on here, and it's for enhancing cross-border payments between 2 very large G7 markets. Come on in. Yeah, I love all of this. Love this. And as a support to this, shout out to Crypto Sensei for this clip. I want to play you this clip of the CEO of Uphold, Simon, talking about the positivity of working with Ripple as a partnership and the new Ripple stablecoin. Take a listen.
Last year, we had an announcement that we're now a node in the Ripple ODL network. So Ripple use us to handle payouts for multinational companies moving treasury from one part of the world to another. We cover Europe, the UK, and the US, and it's been a very exciting business for us. It's exciting to see the utility use case of a major crypto in action. We can see the flows being used. We can see major fintechs and financial institutions using it day to day, and it's for us. It's a fantastic piece of business. We're big believers in blockchain technology. We're not really so interested in crypto as a speculative vehicle. Yeah. And here's an example of how blockchain is being used to serve a major problem in traditional financial infrastructure. So
exactly.
Yeah, we're very excited to be part of it.
And very excited too, because I tell you, that is what we're seeing happening, not only with Uphold, but as we just said, also with Clear Junction as well, right? So this is what we're watching take place here. We're watching these new corridors open up for markets and use, and I absolutely love this. This is why I believe this real utility that's being plugged into and starting to take advantage of and really starting to turn these corridors on for this and these different avenues for this to be used is exciting to me, because it forces these different jurisdictions like the U.S. to get the regulation necessary, because they're not stopping. The rest of the world is doing this. So, we just can't watch ourselves thumb our nose at this innovation and think we'll be okay. We will not be okay. So, at the end of the day, I really love the way Subjective Views wrote this, and I think Subjective Views made another tweet on top of this, but I love this. If we just look at this picture, obviously here's Raul Advani from Policy Director at APAC Ripple. They're and surrounded by so many other key players, Accenture, SBI, MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, and so many others. And then they had a tweet and a quote that they put out, which I absolutely loved, which was, it was something to the effect of, it's not just who you know, it's who knows you. And you really can't say it any better. So shout out to Subjective Views for this, because it's a reminder as we're moving through all of this and seeing all of these corridors and connections be opened up, in whether it's direct or indirect ties to Ripple and the use of XRP either now or some point in the future. You can see where all of this is going. And there's a real reason why Raul Advani is allowed to be in that room with so many people who not only he knows, but they know him and Ripple. Before we get out of here, let's touch on this. There's one piece of the case, the Ripple case with the SEC, that's being left to rule on by Judge Torres, and it's whether the sales to institutions were, in fact, securities or not. Well, Jimmy Valley tackles that by saying here, what do you call a private transaction in securities sold solely to institutions/accredited investors? Well, here's what they call it. They call it exempts from registrants transactions by an issuer not involving any public offering. Exempt, that's what they call it. Then he goes on to say here, I'm talking about the category of institutional sales for which Judge Torres found the contracts to be investment contracts and therefore securities. I think the time frame was 2013 to present. The only thing that Ripple did wrong was that they did not treat those transactions as securities at the time of issuance. If they would have filed a Form D and perfected the private placement. And we wouldn't even be talking right now. But Ripple took the position that those transactions were not securities transactions. So what? Judge Torres has ruled they are securities transactions, but even though they were private placements of securities. And this is much ado about nothing, in Jimmy Valley's opinion. It's really kind of boring, honestly. Now, plot twist. Now that they are securities transactions, if the buyers, that is the institutions of those securities, did not hold the XRP for applicable holding periods and sold the XRP onto secondary markets, then those institutions became underwriters and sold securities without a registration statement in direct violation of securities laws, even the private placement part. Whoopsie, whoopsie. And if you would have been Ripple's corporate lawyer, which I was not, he said, I would have made it very clear in those investment contracts in question that if you, Mr. Institution, sold those securities in violation of securities laws without proper registration statement in place or an applicable exemption in violation of applicable holding periods under the law and or as set forth in our agreement contract, you, Mr. Institution, would be required to indemnify me, Ripple, from any damages, including, say, SEC fines, penalties that arise from your violation of our agreement. In other words, if I were Brad Garlinghouse, which I am not, I'd be cool as a MF and cucumber, which is a legal term of art, because you, Mr. Institution, and not me, Mr. Ripple, breached the investment contract and caused the damages. But that's just me. I think I'm differently from most. P.S. We are laughing. You know, it is something to be said here about the notion that all of this, their securities business could come down to, no, you just simply need to file the form. You know, your Reg D form, right? And then once you file your Form D, it's over. And maybe they get a slap on the wrist. Maybe it's 10 million, 50 million. I think it's less than 50 million. It should be less than 10 million. I get it. You want to teach them a lesson? Fine them $5 million. You file the form next time, right? It's a private placement. That's all it's got to be. I tell you, I just hate the fact that Ripple's had to go through this to this degree of scrutiny and this kind of shade being thrown over the company for 3 years now. It's really despicable. But nonetheless, we're going to stay the course. We're going to be the victor. And when we come out of this thing, it's not going to be the victor just for Ripple and XRP, but this is going to help define it for the entire crypto space. And in doing so, I think that's how we get by. Goodbye to the Howey test. Hello, Ripple test. That's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Busy day today. Digperspectives.com if you want to support the Freedom Zone. Nothing for me today because I got so much going on off the channel, off camera, and it's a lot, but it's all positive and good, so we're excited about it happening. I want you guys to make sure you go to digperspectives.com, click the Freedom Zone. Great way to support the channel for next to nothing, and I am super grateful for each and every one of you, no doubt about it. And I will catch all of you on the next one. Not financial advice from me or anyone else.